The cough rattled through the stagecoach like a death knell, drawing curious and concerned glances from the other passengers as Zara Vance pressed her handkerchief to her lips, desperately trying to stifle the sound. The cloth came away spotted with blood, and she quickly folded it, tucking it into her sleeve before anyone could notice. Her destination, Ordway, Colorado, was still several hours away, and the spring of 1878 had turned unexpectedly cold as they journeyed west. Zara had left behind everything she knew in Boston following her parents' deaths, their modest savings drained by medical bills, leaving her with nothing but debts and a tiny valise of belongings. The advertisement in the newspaper had seemed like divine providence, seeking a bride of good character and sturdy constitution to share life on a cattle ranch in Colorado Territory. Passage paid. She'd responded immediately, exchanging a handful of letters with Isaac Orwell before accepting his proposal. What she hadn't told her soon-to-be husband was that her sturdy constitution had begun to fail. The cough had started in winter just a tickle at first, then developing into something that woke her at night. By the time she'd boarded the train west, the Boston doctor had given her his grim assessment: consumption. But what choice did she have? Stay in Boston and die alone in a charity ward, or take this chance at a new life, however brief it might be. The stagecoach hit a particularly deep rut, jostling the passengers and sending Zara into another coughing fit. The elderly woman across from her frowned and shifted away. "Ain't right to be traveling in your condition, miss," the woman muttered. Zara straightened her spine. "I assure you it's merely a cold from the changing weather." The lie felt bitter on her tongue, but she forced a smile. Just a few more hours, and she would face her future husband and whatever judgment he might pass on her deception. The stagecoach rolled into Ordway just as the afternoon sun began its descent behind the mountains. Zara peered through the dust-coated window at the small frontier town. Unlike Boston with its brick buildings and cobbled streets, Ordway consisted of one main thoroughfare lined with wooden structures, a church steeple rising above the rest, and scattered homesteads visible on the surrounding plains. The Rocky Mountains loomed in the distance, majestic and intimidating. As the driver called out their arrival, Zara gathered her meager belongings, heart pounding with trepidation. She had no idea what Isaac Orwell looked like. They had exchanged only a daguerreotype, and hers had been taken before her illness had begun to waste her features. Would he recognize her from the picture? Would he send her away when he discovered her condition? The stagecoach door swung open, and the driver offered his hand to help her down. Zara stepped carefully onto the dusty street, scanning the small crowd that had gathered for the coach's arrival. Her gaze settled on a tall man standing slightly apart from the others. He wore a worn leather vest over a faded blue shirt, his face partially shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. When his eyes met hers, he removed his hat, revealing thick dark hair with hints of copper in the sunlight. He approached with measured steps, stopping a respectful distance away. "Miss Vance." His voice was deeper than she'd imagined from his letters, with a slight drawl that marked him as a man who'd spent years in the West. "Mr. Orwell," Zara replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. He nodded, a cautious smile touching his lips. "Welcome to Ordway. I hope your journey wasn't too difficult." Before she could answer, a cough seized her, forcing her to turn away and press her handkerchief to her mouth. When she recovered, she found Isaac watching her with concern etched across his sun-weathered face. "I apologize," she said quickly. "The dust from the road, of course," he replied, though his furrowed brow suggested he wasn't convinced. "My wagon's just over here. We have about an hour's ride to the ranch." As he reached for her valise, Zara swayed slightly on her feet, the long journey and her illness catching up with her. Isaac's hand shot out to steady her, his grip firm but gentle on her arm. "Are you all right, Miss Vance? Please call me Zara," she managed. "And yes, I'm simply tired from traveling." Isaac's eyes, a striking shade of green she hadn't expected, studied her face. "You're very pale." "The journey has been long," she repeated. He nodded slowly, clearly wanting to say more but restraining himself. "Well, let's get you to the ranch. Mrs. Holloway has prepared a room for you and there'll be a hot meal waiting." "Mrs. Holloway?" Zara questioned, surprised. "My housekeeper," Isaac explained. "Been with the ranch since my father's time. She's getting on in years, but she refuses to retire, says she'll die in that kitchen." He led her to a sturdy wagon where he carefully helped her onto the bench seat before placing her valise in the back. The simple courtesy of his assistance, the strength in his hands as he steadied her, made Zara's heart flutter despite her exhaustion. As they left town, Isaac kept the horses at an easy pace, occasionally pointing out landmarks or sharing bits of local history. Zara tried to focus on his words, but exhaustion and the persistent ache in her chest made it difficult. When they crested a small rise, Isaac pulled the wagon to a stop. "There it is," he said with quiet pride. "Orwell Ranch." Spread before them was a valley cradled by rolling hills. A substantial log home sat nestled against a stand of cottonwood trees, with a barn and several outbuildings nearby. Cattle dotted the grasslands beyond, and a creek wound through the property, its banks lined with more trees. "It's beautiful," Zara said sincerely, momentarily forgetting her illness as she took in the peaceful scene. Isaac's expression softened. "My father claimed this land 30 years ago, started with nothing but a tent and a dream, built everything you see here. And now it's yours," Zara observed. "Ours," he corrected gently, then quickly added. "That is, if you decide to stay. The arrangement was clear in my letters. You're under no obligation until after the wedding. If you find the place or the man unsuitable, I'll arrange passage back east." The kindness in his voice made tears prick at Zara's eyes. She'd expected a rough frontiersman who viewed a wife as just another piece of property, not this thoughtful man who offered her choices. "Thank you," she whispered. As they continued down toward the ranch, Zara was seized by another violent coughing spell. She tried to smother it with her handkerchief, but there was no hiding it this time. When she finally caught her breath, she found Isaac staring at her with alarm. "Miss Vance, Zara, that's not trail dust." Zara closed her eyes briefly, knowing the moment of truth had arrived sooner than she'd hoped. "No, Mr. Orwell, it's not. How long have you been ill? The doctor in Boston diagnosed me 4 months ago. Consumption." Saying the word aloud made it more real, more terrifying. Isaac's hands tightened on the reins. "And you still made this journey, alone?" "I had nowhere else to go," Zara admitted, her voice small. "My parents are dead, our savings gone. I understand if you wish to void our arrangement. I wasn't entirely truthful in my letters." She expected anger, perhaps disgust, but instead found Isaac studying her with an unreadable expression. "My mother died of consumption," he said finally. "I know what it does, how it progresses. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have sent for me if you'd known?" Isaac didn't answer immediately, and Zara took his silence as confirmation. "I'll understand if you want to send me back," she said, though the thought of returning to Boston with nowhere to go filled her with dread. "And where would you go?" he asked, echoing her thoughts. "I don't know," she admitted. Isaac was quiet for a long moment, the only sound the creak of the wagon and the steady clop of the horses' hooves. Finally, he said, "We have an agreement, Miss Vance. I sent for a bride and you're here. The fact that you're ill doesn't change that." Relief flooded through Zara, quickly followed by confusion. but surely you don't want to marry a woman who might die." His direct words made her flinch. "None of us knows how long we have. Out here, life is precarious for everyone. Drought, blizzards, accidents, any of us could be gone tomorrow." He turned to look at her fully. "What I'm saying is, your illness doesn't change our arrangement unless you want it to." Tears welled in Zara's eyes. "You would still marry me, knowing I might not have much time." "The doctor in Boston, did he say it was certain?" Isaac asked. "He said consumption is always fatal, but that some patients linger for years while others." She couldn't finish the thought. "The air is different here," Isaac said. "Drier, cleaner. Some doctors believe it helps with lung ailments. I've known folks who came west sick and lived far longer than expected." Hope flickered in Zara's chest, fragile as a candle flame in a storm. "I've heard such stories too." "Then perhaps this is where you were meant to be, regardless of how we came to meet." Isaac's voice was gentle. "For now, let's get you to the ranch and settled in. You need rest and food." As they approached the ranch house, a plump, gray-haired woman emerged onto the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. "Mrs. Holloway," Isaac called as he brought the wagon to a stop. "This is Miss Zara Vance." The older woman surveyed Zara with shrewd eyes, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern as she took in Zara's pallor and thin frame. "Pleased to meet you, miss," Mrs. Holloway said, her voice warm despite the worry in her eyes. "I've got supper nearly ready, and your room's all prepared." Isaac helped Zara down from the wagon, and this time when she swayed, he kept his arm firmly around her waist. "Let's get you inside." The interior of the ranch house was far more comfortable than Zara had expected. The main room was spacious, with a large stone fireplace at one end and sturdy, well-made furniture. Colorful woven rugs covered portions of the wooden floor, and bookshelves lined one wall, a sight that immediately endeared the place to Zara, who had always found solace in reading. "This way, dear," Mrs. Holloway said, leading her toward a hallway. "Mr. Orwell had me prepare the blue room for you." The blue room was a cozy chamber with whitewashed walls and blue and white quilted bedding. A washstand stood in one corner, a wardrobe in another, and a small writing desk beneath the window that overlooked a garden plot and the creek beyond. "It's lovely," Zara said, genuinely touched by the care that had been taken to prepare for her arrival. "Rest a bit before supper, Mrs. Holloway suggested. "I'll bring you some tea to ease that cough." Left alone, Zara sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the events of the day. She'd expected rejection upon revealing her illness, not the compassion Isaac had shown. She didn't know what to make of his willingness to honor their arrangement despite her condition. Was it merely duty, or something else? Her contemplation was interrupted by another coughing spell, this one leaving her weak and gasping. When she finally caught her breath, she found Isaac standing in the doorway, watching her with concern. "I've sent for Dr. Winters," he said without preamble. "He lives in town but makes regular visits to the outlying ranches." "That's not necessary," Zara protested. "I know what ails me." "Humor me," Isaac replied. "The doctor should be here tomorrow. In the meantime, Mrs. Holloway swears by her herbal tea for chest ailments." As if summoned by his words, the housekeeper appeared with a steaming cup. "Drink it all, miss. It won't cure what you've got, but it'll ease the symptoms." Zara accepted the tea, inhaling the fragrant steam. It smelled of mint and something spicy she couldn't identify. "Thank you, both of you," she said softly. "You're being very kind to a stranger." Isaac's expression softened. "You're not a stranger, Zara. We've been corresponding for months." "Letters can lie," she pointed out. "True," he acknowledged. "But they can also reveal truths the writer might not even realize they're sharing." With that enigmatic statement, he left her to rest, closing the door softly behind him. Zara sipped the tea, which tasted better than she expected, and felt some of the tightness in her chest ease. Outside her window, the Colorado sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, so different from the city views she'd known all her life. Despite her uncertain future in this moment, she felt a strange sense of peace. Perhaps, she thought as exhaustion pulled her toward sleep, this was where she was meant to be after all. The next morning, Zara woke to sunlight streaming through her window and the distant sounds of ranch life already in full swing. For a moment, she lay still, surprised to find she'd slept through the night without waking to cough. Her chest still felt tight, but the rest had done her good. A soft knock at the door preceded Mrs. Holloway's entrance with a breakfast tray. "Good morning, Miss Vance. Thought you might like to eat in your room this morning." "That's very thoughtful, but I can come to the table," Zara insisted, sitting up. "Mrs." Holloway's eyes narrowed slightly as she assessed Zara. "Mr. Orwell said to let you rest, but if you're feeling up to it, I won't argue. He's already out with the hands but should be back midday when the doctor arrives." Zara nodded, reaching for the robe that had been laid out for her. "I'll join you in the kitchen then. I'd like to learn my way around if I'm to be mistress here." A smile cracked the housekeeper's stern face. "Sensible attitude. Most mail-order brides I've seen come through these parts expect to be waited on hand and foot. Never lasts long out here." "I've never been afraid of work," Zara assured her, thinking of the long hours she'd spent helping in her father's bookshop before his illness had forced them to sell it. In the kitchen, Zara ate a simple but hearty breakfast of eggs, biscuits, and bacon while Mrs. Holloway kneaded dough for the day's bread. The older woman kept up a steady stream of information about the ranch and its operations. 20 ranch hands in summer, dozen or so in winter. Most bunk in the bunkhouse, but the foreman, that's Miguel Sanchez, has a cabin near the south pasture with his wife Lucia and their 3 children. They've been with the ranch since Mr. Orwell Sr.'s time. "And Mr. Orwell Isaac has run the ranch alone since his father died?" Zara asked. 5 years now," Mrs. Holloway confirmed. "His mother passed when he was just 14. Consumption took her. Father died of a stroke 5 years back. No siblings. Boy's been alone too long if you ask me, which is why he finally advertised for a bride. Though I had my doubts about bringing a city girl out here. I may be from the city, but I'm not afraid of hard work or simple living," Zara reiterated. Mrs. Holloway's expression softened. "It's not the work I'm worried about, girl. It's your health. That cough of yours, I've heard it before." "Seen what it does?" Zara set down her fork. "I didn't mean to deceive anyone. I just had nowhere else to go." "I'm not judging you," the older woman said gently. "Just concerned for both of you." "Both," Mrs. Holloway sighed. "Isaac lost his mother to the same illness. Watched her waste away over 2 years. He was just a boy, but he helped care for her till the end. Nearly broke him." Zara felt a chill despite the warm kitchen. "And now he's willing to go through that again with me. Why would he do that?" "That's something you'll have to ask him, Mrs. Holloway replied, turning back to her bread dough. "But I will say this: Isaac Orwell is the most honorable man I've ever known. If he gave his word to marry you, he'll stand by it." After breakfast, despite Mrs. Holloway's protests, Zara insisted on helping with the household chores. She was sweeping the front porch when a rider approached, a middle-aged man with spectacles and a beard streaked with gray. "You must be Miss Vance," he called as he dismounted. "I'm Dr. Winters. Isaac sent word you might need my services." "He's being overly cautious," Zara replied, though another cough belied her words. The doctor raised an eyebrow. "I'll be the judge of that if you don't mind." In her bedroom, the The doctor conducted a thorough examination, listening to her lungs and questioning her about her symptoms, diet, and the progression of her illness. "The Boston doctor diagnosed consumption?" he asked as he put away his stethoscope. "Yes, he said it was quite advanced, doctor." Winters frowned. "I won't contradict another physician's diagnosis without good reason, but I will say this: your lungs don't sound as congested as I would expect given what you've described." Hope fluttered in Zara's chest. "What does that mean?" "It could mean several things. The dry air here might already be helping, or the diagnosis might have been hasty." He paused. "Have you been coughing up blood?" "Yes, but less since arriving here," Zara admitted, realizing it was true. Dr. Winters nodded thoughtfully. "I've seen cases of consumption improve dramatically in this climate. Not cured, mind you, but arrested to the point where patients live many years with minimal symptoms." "So there's hope," Zara whispered. "There's always hope, Miss Vance, and you have youth on your side." He began packing his bag. "My recommendations are simple: rest, good food, fresh air but not to excess, gradual exercise as you feel able, and a tonic I'll leave with instructions for Mrs. Holloway." "Thank you, doctor. Don't thank me yet. I want to see you in 2 weeks." He smiled kindly. "And in the meantime, try not to worry too much. Anxiety only worsens the condition." When the doctor left her room, Zara heard the murmur of voices in the main room. She changed into a simple day dress and made her way to join them, pausing when she heard her name mentioned. "Miss Vance's condition is serious but not as dire as she believes," Dr. Winters was saying. "The mountain air may already be helping. With proper care, she could have many good years ahead." "And without proper care," Isaac's voice tense with concern, a hesitation. "Then the prognosis is much less favorable. She needs rest, good nutrition, and as little stress as possible." "She'll have all that," Isaac assured him. "And what of your plans to marry?" the doctor asked. "I don't mean to pry, but given her condition." "Our arrangement stands," Isaac said firmly, "unless she chooses otherwise." "Very well. I'll return in 2 weeks to check her progress." Zara retreated a few steps before entering the room, pretending she hadn't overheard. Isaac turned as she appeared, his expression brightening slightly. "Zara, the doctor was just leaving." Dr. Winters tipped his hat to her. "Remember what I said, Miss Vance. Rest, good food, and a positive outlook." After he'd gone, Zara found herself alone with Isaac for the first time since her arrival. He studied her face, his green eyes intent. "You look better today," he observed. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in months," she admitted. "The air here, it feels different in my lungs." A smile touched his lips. "That's what I was hoping. My mother always felt better in summer when we could get her outside more." The mention of his mother reminded Zara of what Mrs. Holloway had told her. "I heard that your mother suffered from the same illness." Isaac's expression sobered. "She did, for 2 years before it finally took her. Mrs. Holloway said you helped care for her. We all did. My father, Mrs. Holloway, me." He moved to the window, looking out toward the distant mountains. "It wasn't easy watching her fade away, but I never regretted the time we had, even at the end." Zara moved to stand beside him. "I don't want to put you through that again." Isaac turned to face her. "Is that what you think you'd be doing, isn't it?" she challenged gently. "No," he said firmly. "What happened with my mother was tragic, but it was also a gift in its way. I got to show her how much I loved her every day until the end. I got to say goodbye properly." His voice softened. "Everyone dies, Zara. Not everyone gets to know it's coming to make their peace, to say the things that need saying." His words touched something deep within her. "That's a remarkably generous way to view it. Not generous, just true." He hesitated, then added, "I want to be clear about something. I'm not offering to marry you out of pity or some misguided sense of duty." The woman I came to know through her letters, intelligent, thoughtful, brave, that's who I want as my wife. The fact that you're ill doesn't change that. Zara swallowed hard against the emotion rising in her throat. And if I get worse, if I can't be the wife you need, then we'll face that together as husband and wife. Isaac took her hand gently. All I ask is that you give this place and me a fair chance. Looking into his earnest green eyes, Zara found herself nodding. I will. The next 2 weeks passed in a gentle rhythm as Zara gradually adjusted to life at the ranch. True to his word, Isaac ensured she had everything she needed: rest, nutrition, and time to acclimate to the altitude and climate. Each day, she found her strength increasing slightly, the coughing spells becoming less frequent and less severe. Mrs. Holloway proved to be a godsend, not only preparing meals designed to build Zara's strength, but also teaching her about running a ranch household. Zara learned about preserving food, managing supplies through the long winter months, and the rhythms of ranch life. Isaac, too, was attentive without being smothering. He brought her books from his surprisingly extensive library, shared meals with her when his work allowed, and in the evenings, they often sat on the porch watching the sunset while he told her stories of the land and its history. One such evening, as they watched the sky turn from gold to deep purple, Zara found herself studying Isaac's profile. The strong line of his jaw, the slight crinkles at the corners of his eyes that spoke of days spent in the sun, the gentleness in his expression as he described the first winter his father had spent on this land. You love it here, she observed. Isaac nodded. It's in my blood now. I can't imagine living anywhere else. I think I'm beginning to understand why, Zara said, breathing deeply of the clean mountain air. There's something healing about this place. Isaac turned to her, his expression hopeful. You feel it too? I do. I've felt better these past 2 weeks than I have in months. Dr. Winters will be pleased to hear it when he returns tomorrow. Isaac hesitated, then added, and so am I. Their eyes met, and Zara felt a flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with her illness. In the fading light, with the vast Colorado sky above them and the gentle sounds of the ranch settling for the night around them, something shifted between them, something warm and tentative, but undeniably real. The moment was broken by the sound of hooves approaching. Isaac stood, his hand going instinctively to the pistol at his hip before relaxing as he recognized the rider. Miguel, he called as the ranch foreman rode up. Everything all right? Just checking in, boss, the foreman replied, tipping his hat to Zara. Buenas noches, Señorita Vance. Good evening, Mr. Sanchez, Zara replied with a smile. She'd met the foreman and his family earlier in the week when Lucia had brought fresh baked bread and her 3 curious children to meet the new arrival. We've moved the herd to the north pasture, Miguel reported. That storm brewing in the mountains might bring heavy rain, and I don't want them near the creek if it floods. Isaac nodded. Good thinking. I'll ride out at first light to check on them. After Miguel left, Isaac turned apologetically to Zara. Ranch business never stops. I don't mind, she assured him. It's fascinating learning how everything works here. Most city women would find it terribly dull. I'm not most women, Zara replied with a small smile. Isaac's gaze warmed. No, you certainly are not. That night, Zara slept soundly despite the distant rumble of thunder as the predicted storm moved in. She woke to the sound of rain pattering on her window and the delicious smell of coffee and baking bread. Dr. Winters arrived mid-morning, just as the storm was clearing. His examination was thorough, and by the end he was smiling. Remarkable improvement, he declared. Your lungs are clearer and you've gained a little weight. Mrs. Holloway's cooking, Zara explained. She's determined to put meat on my bones, as she puts it. Whatever the reason, it's working. Continue as you have been, and I'll check on you again in a month." The doctor packed up his bag. "You might start taking short walks when the weather permits. Build your strength gradually." When he left, Zara found Isaac waiting anxiously in the main room. "Good news?" he asked as soon as he saw her smile. "The doctor seems to think so," she confirmed. "He says I'm improving." Relief washed over Isaac's face. "I knew it. This place, it's good for healing." "It's not just the place," Zara said softly. "It's the people too." That afternoon, when the rain cleared, Isaac surprised her by suggesting they take the doctor's advice about walking. "Just down to the creek and back," he proposed. "The rain will have brought out the wildflowers." Zara readily agreed, and with Mrs. Holloway's grudging approval they set out. Isaac offered his arm, which Zara gratefully accepted. The ground was muddy in places, and she was still not entirely steady on her feet after her long illness. The air was fresh and clean after the rain, filled with the scents of wet earth and pine. As Isaac had predicted, wildflowers dotted the meadow leading down to the creek, splashes of purple, yellow, and white against the green grass. "It's beautiful," Zara breathed, stopping to admire a particularly vibrant patch of blue flowers. "Rocky Mountain columbine," Isaac identified them. "Colorado's state flower." "You know a lot about wildflowers for a cattle rancher," Zara observed with amusement. A slight flush colored Isaac's tan cheeks. "My mother taught me. She loved flowers, kept journals about all the different kinds that grow in these parts." "Do you still have her journals?" Zara asked. Isaac nodded. "In my room. I could show them to you if you'd like." "I'd like that very much." They continued to the creek, which ran higher and faster than usual after the rain. Finding a dry spot on a fallen log, they sat side by side, watching the water rush over the rocks. "I used to play here as a boy," Isaac said, his voice thoughtful. "Built dams, caught frogs, all the things boys do. My father taught me to fish just downstream where the water pools." "It sounds like a wonderful childhood," Zara said. "It was, mostly. Lonely sometimes, no other children nearby, but never dull." He glanced at her. "What about you? What was Boston like?" Zara thought for a moment. "Crowded, noisy, but exciting too." "My father owned a bookshop, and I practically lived among the shelves. I think I read every book we ever stocked." "That explains your letters," Isaac said with a smile. "I've never corresponded with anyone who expressed themselves so beautifully." Zara felt herself blushing. "Your letters were equally compelling. I could almost see this place through your descriptions. That's why I chose you, among the responses I received." "There were others?" Isaac asked, his eyebrows rising in surprise. "A few," Zara admitted. "But none who seemed to care about who I was beyond my ability to cook and bear children." Isaac's expression grew serious. "A wife should be a partner, not just a housekeeper or broodmare." The blunt phrasing startled a laugh from Zara, which quickly turned into a cough. Isaac's hand was immediately on her back, steadying her until the spasm passed. "Perhaps we should head back," he suggested, concern evident in his voice. "Not yet," Zara protested. "I'm fine, truly, and it's so peaceful here." Isaac studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "A few more minutes, then." They sat in comfortable silence, watching a pair of sparrows darting over the water. Zara was acutely aware of Isaac beside her, his warmth, the clean scent of soap and leather that clung to him, the way his hand still rested lightly on her back as if ready to steady her again if needed. "Isaac," she said finally, gathering her courage, "I need to ask you something important." He turned to face her fully. "Anything? Our arrangement, the marriage, are you certain you want to proceed? Given my condition." "I am," he said without hesitation. "But why?" Zara pressed. "You could find a healthy bride, one who could give you children, help with the ranch for years to come." Isaac was quiet for a long moment, his gaze moving from her face to the rushing creek and back. "Do you know why I finally decided to advertise for a bride?" he asked. Zara shook her head. "Last winter was hard. Heavy snow, bitter cold. I spent weeks barely seeing another soul except when I rode out to check the herd. One night, there was a blizzard so fierce I couldn't even make it to the barn to check on a mare about to foal. I sat by the fire, listening to that wind howling, and realized I didn't want to face another winter alone. Didn't want to face any season alone anymore." He took her hand gently. "Your letters showed me a woman with courage, intelligence, and a kind heart. Those are the qualities I want in a wife, not just the ability to bear children or work from dawn to dusk." "But you do want children someday," Zara said. It wasn't really a question. "I do," Isaac admitted, "but there are many ways to build a family. Children who need homes, or perhaps you'll recover enough for us to have our own someday. And if neither of those things happen, then we'll still have each other." Tears pricked at Zara's eyes. "You make it sound so simple." "Not simple," he corrected, "but right. At least it feels right to me." "The question is, does it feel right to you?" Zara looked at this man who had welcomed her despite her deception, who had shown her nothing but kindness and respect, who spoke of a future together as if her illness were merely an obstacle to be faced together rather than an insurmountable barrier. "Yes," she whispered, "it does." Isaac's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Then we have an understanding." As they walked back to the house, arm in arm, Zara felt a lightness in her heart that had nothing to do with her improving health and everything to do with the man beside her. For the first time since her diagnosis, she allowed herself to truly hope not just for a few more months or years of life, but for a future filled with meaning and joy, however long it might be. Over the next month, Zara's health continued to improve. The coughing spells became rarer, her appetite returned, and her strength increased steadily. Dr. Winters pronounced himself pleased with her progress during his monthly visit, though he cautioned that consumption was unpredictable and she should continue to prioritize her health. As she grew stronger, Zara began to take on more responsibilities around the ranch. She learned to manage the household accounts, took over the kitchen garden from an appreciative Mrs. Holloway, and even began accompanying Isaac on short rides to nearby parts of the ranch. During these outings, their relationship deepened. Isaac taught her about cattle ranching, sharing the knowledge passed down from his father and gained through his own experiences. Zara, in turn, read to him from the books in his library, discussing ideas and stories in a way he hadn't experienced since his school days. Their wedding was set for late summer, when the weather would be mild and the ranch work less demanding. As the date approached, Zara found herself growing more nervous not about marrying Isaac, whose steady presence had become the center of her new life, but about fulfilling her role as his wife in all ways. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies dance in the gathering dusk, Zara gathered her courage to voice her concerns. "Isaac, there's something we should discuss before the wedding." He turned to her, his expression open. "What is it?" "My illness, the doctor says I'm improving, but consumption isn't cured so easily. There may be times when I'm not well enough for all the duties of a wife." She felt heat rise to her cheeks at the indirect reference to marital relations. Understanding dawned in Isaac's eyes. "Zara, I don't expect anything from you that would compromise your health. But a husband has certain rights," she persisted, the old-fashioned phrasing feeling awkward on her tongue. Isaac took her hand, his expression serious. "I don't think of marriage that way. It's not about rights or duties. It's about partnership, caring for each other, building a life together. But you do want, that is." Zara stumbled over the words, frustrated by her inability to speak plainly about such matters. A physical relationship, Isaac supplied gently. When she nodded, he continued, "Of course I do. I find you beautiful and desirable, but that aspect of marriage can wait until you're ready, until you're stronger." Relief and something like disappointment mingled in Zara's chest. "And if that never happens, then we'll have a marriage built on companionship and affection, which is more than many couples have." His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "I won't pretend I wouldn't be disappointed, but it wouldn't change how I feel about you or my commitment to our marriage." Zara studied his face, searching for any sign of insincerity, but found only honest affection and concern. "You are a remarkable man, Isaac Orwell." His smile was tinged with self-deprecation. "Not remarkable. Just raised to believe that a man's word is his bond, and that caring for those you love is the highest calling. Your parents taught you well." "They did." His expression grew thoughtful. "They had a good marriage, not perfect, but good. Even through my mother's illness, they remained devoted to each other. I saw what real commitment looks like." As twilight deepened around them, they fell silent, hands still linked. In that moment, Zara felt a certainty settle in her heart. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever limitations her health might impose, this was the man she wanted to face life with. 2 weeks before the wedding, Lucia Sanchez and several other ranch wives arrived to help Zara prepare a wedding dress. They brought yards of cream-colored cotton, lace salvaged from an old tablecloth, and enthusiasm that swept away Zara's half-hearted protests that something simple would suffice. "A woman should feel beautiful on her wedding day," Lucia insisted as she took Zara's measurements. "And besides, Mr. Orwell deserves to see his bride looking her best." The other women nodded in agreement, and Zara surrendered to their expertise. As they worked, the women shared stories of their own weddings and marriages, offering advice both practical and personal. "My Manuel, he works from sunup to sundown," one woman said as she hemmed the dress. "But every night, no matter how tired, he asks about my day. It's the little things that matter over time." "And separate blankets," another added with a wink. "Keeps the peace when he steals all the covers." The women's laughter and camaraderie enveloped Zara in a sense of belonging she hadn't felt since leaving Boston. These frontier wives, with their weathered hands and practical wisdom, were accepting her as one of their own, illness and all. When the dress was finally finished, Zara could hardly believe the transformation. The simple design suited her slender frame, while the lace at the collar and cuffs added an element of elegance. "You look beautiful," Mrs. Holloway declared, her usually gruff voice softening. Isaac won't know what hit him. The day before the wedding, a wagon arrived from town bearing supplies for the celebration, and an unexpected surprise, a letter for Zara. She recognized the Boston postmark immediately and tore it open with trembling hands. "It's from my father's old business partner," she told Isaac as she scanned the contents. "He writes that the man who bought the bookshop has offered to purchase my father's rare book collection as well. It's been in storage since his death." Her voice grew excited. "He's offering $300, Isaac whistled softly. "That's a substantial sum." "It is. I never expected." Zara looked up, her eyes shining. "Isaac, this means I won't come to our marriage entirely penniless." "I never cared about that," he assured her. "I know, but it matters to me. I can contribute something tangible." She hesitated. "And perhaps we could use some of it to build a small greenhouse. Mrs. Holloway mentioned your mother always wanted one to grow plants during the winter months." Isaac's expression softened with surprise and pleasure. "You'd want to do that?" "I would. I've come to love gardening here, and it would be a way to honor your mother's memory." She hesitated. And perhaps a practical consideration as well. Fresh vegetables year-round would be good for my health. Isaac took her hands in his. I think it's a wonderful idea. Their wedding day dawned clear and bright, the late August air carrying the first hint of autumn crispness. The ceremony was to be held at the ranch, with the local minister riding out from Ordway to officiate. Zara stood at her bedroom window, watching as ranch hands and neighbors arrived, setting up tables beneath the cottonwood trees and arranging benches for the ceremony. Her heart fluttered with a mixture of excitement and nerves, but there was no doubt clouding her mind. This was right. This was where she belonged. A knock at the door preceded Mrs. Holloway's entrance. The housekeeper carried a small package wrapped in tissue paper. "This is from Isaac," she explained, handing it to Zara. "A wedding gift." Inside the package, Zara found a leather-bound journal, its cover tooled with a delicate pattern of wildflowers. A note in Isaac's neat handwriting lay inside. "For recording your observations of Colorado's flora, or perhaps your thoughts as you begin this new chapter. Whatever you choose to fill these pages with, know that I look forward to building a life of stories worth telling with you. With love, Isaac." Tears pricked at Zara's eyes as she ran her fingers over the beautiful craftsmanship. "Did he make this himself?" Mrs. Holloway nodded. "Been working on it for weeks, after you showed interest in his mother's journals. The boy might not be one for fancy words spoken aloud, but he puts his heart into his actions." "I'm beginning to see that," Zara said softly, as Mrs. Holloway helped her dress. Zara reflected on the journey that had brought her to this day. 4 months ago, she had boarded a train east with little hope for the future, her body ravaged by illness, her spirit nearly broken. Now, though not fully recovered, she felt stronger in body and resolve than she had in years. "There," Mrs. Holloway said, stepping back to survey her work. "You look lovely." Zara turned to the small mirror on her dresser. The woman who looked back at her was still thin but no longer gaunt. Her cheeks held a hint of color, and her eyes were bright with anticipation rather than fever. The cream-colored dress complemented her dark hair, which Mrs. Holloway had arranged with small white flowers from the garden. "Thank you," Zara said, impulsively hugging the older woman, "for everything." Mrs. Holloway returned the embrace briefly before stepping back, blinking rapidly. "Now, don't you go making me cry and ruin all my hard work. It's time. Are you ready?" Zara nodded. "I am." The ceremony was simple but beautiful. Neighbors and ranch hands gathered on benches set up in front of the house, with the majestic backdrop of the Colorado mountains behind them. Miguel Sanchez stood beside Isaac as his best man, while Lucia had agreed to stand with Zara. When Zara emerged from the house on Mrs. Holloway's arm, the older woman serving in place of the father who would have traditionally given the bride away, a hush fell over the assembled guests. Isaac, standing beneath an arch covered with late summer flowers, turned to watch her approach. The look on his face in that moment, wonder, joy, and something deeper that made Zara's heart skip, was one she knew she would remember for the rest of her life. He wore a new shirt and his best trousers, his usually unruly hair neatly combed, but it was his expression that transformed him. As she reached him and Mrs. Holloway placed her hand in his, Isaac whispered, "You're beautiful." "So are you," she whispered back, making him smile. The minister's words washed over them as they stood hand in hand, promises of fidelity, support in sickness, and in health, words that held particular meaning for them both, and a commitment to build a life together, whatever challenges might come. When they were pronounced husband and wife, Isaac's kiss was gentle but held a promise of deeper passion to come when they were ready. The guests erupted in cheers and applause, and the celebration began in earnest. tables laden with food prepared by Mrs. Holloway and the neighboring ranch wives, music provided by ranch hands with fiddles and guitars, and dancing that continued well into the evening made for a joyous occasion. Zara found herself passed from partner to partner for the livelier dances, with Isaac watching carefully to ensure she didn't overtax herself. As the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows across the land, Isaac found her sitting at one of the tables, catching her breath after a particularly energetic reel. "Had enough?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Zara smiled up at him. "For dancing, perhaps, but the day, never." He offered his hand. "Come with me, I want to show you something." Curious, Zara allowed him to lead her away from the festivities, down the path toward the creek where they had sat together months earlier. As they walked, he explained, "I've been working on a surprise for you. A wedding present." "The journal wasn't my present," Zara asked. "That was just the beginning." They rounded a bend in the path, and Zara gasped. There, in a clearing near the creek but sheltered by trees, stood a small cabin. Newly built, its logs still fresh and golden, with a porch across the front and windows that caught the last rays of the setting sun. "Isaac," she breathed. "What is this?" "Our home," he said simply, "if you want it to be. But the ranch house will always be there. Mrs. Holloway will continue to run it as she always has." He took both her hands in his. "But I thought you might like a place that's just ours. Somewhere quiet where you can rest when you need to, where we can build our life together without an audience." Tears welled in Zara's eyes as she took in the thoughtfulness of his gift. "When did you do all this?" "Been working on it since you agreed to marry me. The hands helped when they could be spared. Miguel supervised when I couldn't be here." He smiled a bit sheepishly. "I'm not sure if you'll like it. It's small compared to the main house, but it's perfect," Zara interrupted, squeezing his hands. "Absolutely perfect." Relief washed over Isaac's face. "You want to see inside?" The interior was simple but lovingly crafted. A main room with a stone fireplace, a small kitchen area, and a bedroom separated by a curtain that could be drawn for privacy. Simple furniture, much of it clearly handmade, filled the space. A table and chairs, a comfortable-looking settee near the fireplace. Bookshelves already filled with volumes from the main house's library. "You thought of everything," Zara marveled, running her hand along the smooth wood of the mantel. "I tried to. Miguel's boys helped bring your things down earlier today. And look." He led her to the bedroom area where her valise sat at the foot of a large bed covered with a colorful quilt. "Lucia and the women made this as their wedding gift." Zara touched the quilt, recognizing pieces of fabric from dresses she'd seen the ranch wives wear. "It's beautiful. There's one more thing." Isaac guided her to a door at the back of the cabin. "It's not finished yet, but with your dowry money and some work this fall." He opened the door to reveal a small attached structure with a dirt floor and framework already in place for glass walls and ceiling. "Your greenhouse. Come spring, you'll have a place to start seedlings, and next winter, fresh greens even in the snow." Overwhelmed, Zara turned and threw her arms around him. "Thank you," she whispered against his chest, "for everything. For taking a chance on a sick woman you'd never met, for caring for me, for this beautiful home." Isaac's arms tightened around her. "Thank you for coming west, for being brave enough to start over, for agreeing to be my wife despite everything." They stood there, holding each other as the last light faded from the sky and the sounds of the wedding celebration echoed faintly from the main house. When Zara finally pulled back to look up at her husband, she found him watching her with an expression that made her breath catch. "We should probably get back to our guests," she said softly. "Probably," he agreed, making no move to release her. "Or we could stay here, start our life together now." The implication was clear in his voice, a question and an invitation but not a demand. "I would like that," Zara said, surprising herself with how true the words were. She had worried about this moment, feared she might be too weak or that her illness might make intimacy impossible. But here, in this beautiful place he had created for her, with this man who had shown her nothing but respect and care, she felt only anticipation. "Are you sure?" Isaac asked, his thumb gently tracing her cheekbone. "We can wait. There's no rush." "I'm sure," she replied, rising on her tiptoes to press her lips to his. The kiss began gently but quickly deepened, months of growing affection and restrained desire finding expression at last. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Isaac rested his forehead against hers. "We should at least let someone know we won't be returning," he said with a rueful smile, "or they'll send out a search party." "Mrs. Holloway," Zara agreed. "She'll understand." Isaac pressed a quick kiss to her lips. "Wait here, I'll be right back." As he disappeared down the path, Zara moved through the cabin that was now her home, touching the furnishings, imagining the life they would build here together. Despite the doctor's optimistic prognosis, she knew her future remained uncertain. Consumption was unpredictable, and even with the improvements she'd experienced, there were no guarantees. But in this moment, in this place, that uncertainty seemed less important than the certainty she felt about her choice of husband and home. Whatever time she had, months, years, decades would be lived fully with purpose and love. When Isaac returned, she was waiting for him on the small porch, the first stars appearing in the darkening sky above her. "Mrs. Holloway says not to worry about the guests," he reported, climbing the steps to join her. "Apparently, our disappearance was expected. She's had a bet going with Miguel about whether we'd make it through the entire reception." Zara laughed. "And who won?" "Miguel. He said we wouldn't last past sunset." Isaac's arms slipped around her waist. "Are you disappointed to miss the rest of our wedding celebration?" "Not at all." Zara leaned into his embrace. "This is perfect." As they stood together on the porch of their new home, the sounds of music and laughter drifting faintly from the main house, Zara felt a deep sense of peace settle over her. She had traveled west with little hope, seeking only a place to spend her final days with dignity. Instead, she had found healing, purpose, and a love she had never dared to dream of. Whatever the future held, this moment, this beginning, was everything she could have wished for. Spring 1880. Zara Orwell stood in the doorway of her greenhouse, surveying the seedlings that would soon be transplanted to the kitchen garden. 2 years had passed since her arrival in Colorado, 2 years of gradual healing, of building a life with Isaac, of putting down roots in this land that had given her a second chance. The consumption that had once threatened to end her life had retreated to a shadow, still present but contained. Dr. Winters, who now checked on her just twice a year, had pronounced her case arrested, not cured, but stable enough that she could live a nearly normal life as long as she continued to take care of her health. "Mama, look what I found." 3-year-old Thomas came running across the yard, his small hands cupped around something. Isaac followed at a more sedate pace, smiling at their son's enthusiasm. Zara knelt to examine her son's treasure. "What have you got there, little man?" Thomas carefully opened his hands to reveal a small blue feather. "Bird feather, for your collection. It's beautiful," Zara said seriously, accepting the slightly crushed feather. "Thank you. Shall we put it in my special book?" The boy nodded eagerly, his green eyes so like his father's, bright with excitement. Thomas's birth had been both a miracle and a terrifying risk. Dr. Winters had warned that pregnancy could worsen Zara's condition. But after a year of marriage and continued improvement in her health, They had decided to try for a child. The pregnancy had been difficult, with several frightening episodes of weakness and coughing, but Thomas had arrived healthy and strong, and Zara had recovered better than anyone had dared to hope. "He found that all by himself," Isaac said proudly as he joined them. "Got a real eye for detail, this one." "Just like his father," Zara replied with a smile. Isaac's arm slipped around her waist as they watched their son scamper off in search of more treasures. "Happy?" The question was one he asked often, a check-in that had become a ritual between them. Zara leaned into his embrace, breathing in the scent of him leather, soap, and the indefinable essence that was simply Isaac. "Very," she answered truthfully. "And grateful." She thought of the letter she'd received just yesterday from Boston News, that her father's former business partner had succumbed to influenza. A stark reminder of how easily her own life might have ended before it truly began. How close she had come to missing this love, this family, this place that had become her home in every sense. "What are you thinking about?" Isaac asked. Noticing her momentary solemnity, Zara turned in his arms to face him. "About how lucky I am, how lucky we all are." His expression softened as he brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Luck had nothing to do with it. You fought for this life. We both did." She nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words. Their happiness hadn't come easily. There had been setbacks along the way, days when her illness flared and breathing became a struggle, the difficult birth of their son, the harsh realities of ranch life during drought and blizzard. But through it all, they had faced each challenge together, their bond strengthening with each obstacle overcome. "Mama, Papa, come see." Thomas called from near the creek where he'd discovered something new. Isaac laughed. "Duty calls." Hand in hand, they walked toward their son, the Colorado sun warm on their shoulders, the future stretching before them like the vast, promising horizon.